Welcome to the Raising Confident Kids podcast. It's your host, Mohini Pollock. I'm a literacy specialist, founder, and mom, having conversations about parenting with parents, educators, and experts. Last weekend, my son and my husband came home after a morning excursion to the pump track. My son is 2 years old, and one of his favorite things to do is biking on his Strider bike. So it's a balance bike. And at the pump track, he goes up and down these gentle hills. There are always other toddlers and kids there. So it's a really fun outing for him. Now, when they got back, Sam had something to show me, and I thought he was going to show me a cute video or photo of Anand. But when I watched the video, it was not what I expected. So in this video, my toddler is on his bike in between two kids. There's a little boy and a little girl. The little boy starts bullying the girl and trying to make her feel like she doesn't belong. And then the little girl looks at him and says, "I'm strong, I'm going to bike," and she bikes away. Now, my son is only 2, and watching this video made me realize that 2 is the right time to start having conversations about how to treat girls, gender roles, gender. After watching and rewatching that video many times, I went to an account on Instagram called @Pile for Style because I've noticed her publish a lot of videos that question gender norms. She has this series that always starts with teaching my son, like teaching my son to put effort into Valentine's Day so his future love never feels silly celebrating love with him on this day. Teaching my sons to cook so they don't grow up thinking cooking is a woman's job. Teaching my sons if you see someone is doing a chore, it'll be done a lot quicker if you just join in. Teaching our boys that household gender roles are purely socialization. Now, I really like her content because it questions gender norms, but I never really saw myself and my son in that content. But after watching that video of the little toddler boy bullying the little toddler girl right in front of my son, it made me realize that it is time for me to start having difficult and important conversations with him because people around him, people outside of his family, are sending him messages. If you, like me, want to have difficult and meaningful conversations with your kids, then keep listening because last week I had an incredibly insightful conversation with Tara Ballentine. She is the founder of Bright Littles. Bright Littles journals are journals that parents and kids complete together. Bright Littles also creates amazing conversation cards to get communicating with your kids. I'm going to let you listen to her tell her incredible story herself.
Thank you so much for having me. That key word that you said is that it's hard. It's hard to know what to say, what not to say, at what age you say it. And then for me, I didn't grow up like this. So I wanted to find a tool to help me. We're parenting in a different world than what we grew up with, the way that we were parented. The world has changed and is changing, but the tools that we need to parent are not quite evolving. I think what has evolved and what I saw was, and I'm grateful for it, is you can find a gajillion books about parenting. You can find, 5 tips for parenting, podcasts for parenting. And I love all of those. But what I was missing and what I couldn't find is the actionable tool to actually put the parenting advice and to put the tips into motion. And that's where I felt like that was a real missing key piece, that it didn't matter how much knowledge I gained of what I'm supposed to do, I couldn't find the how to do it. And that's basically how Bright Little started, is, how do you meet your child where they need you to be in an age appropriate way, and talk about some things that are hard and they are happening because of current events. It's always a good time to talk about consent and boundaries. It's always a good time to talk about leadership and voice and mental health. But then coupled with, how do you talk to your child about lockdown drills at school? How do you talk and prepare your child if ICE and immigration come to school? How do you ask if there's a gun on a play date? These are the things that we have to be asking, but I didn't know where to start. And knowing that I wasn't going to wait for something to happen bad, I wanted to jump ahead of it. And the concept I've come up with and the way I can best describe it is that For generations, we were not wrong. Like when we know better, we do better. We just, I guess, didn't know better at the time. But,
Yeah.
we all want to protect our kids. And I think that there's two ways to define protecting our kids. There's one, protecting our kids by not giving them, not having conversations and not giving them information. And I get that. However, it leaves the child not prepared to protect themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the approach I want to take. Is I want my definition of protecting my child is I'm preparing her, I'm having conversations with her, I'm her primary source of information, so that when she encounters said topic or issue, do you want her to stand still or find a helper? If there's a fire, how do they get out of the house? Where do they go?
Mm-hmm.
I want to prepare her so that she can protect herself. She knows what to do. And there's statistics that show that when children have a plan, it actually helps them be courageous and settle some of the anxiety. We just didn't have the tools to actually do it. And that's where I was like, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, and that's what I really want to highlight. I think millennial and Gen X parents are smart. Like, we're reading the articles, we're listening to the podcasts. We have so much information at our fingertips. And I think it's really important that you highlight that this is a tool. Like, I think that parents consume a lot of information and talk about it, but when it comes to actually taking the action, we don't always have the right tools. Now's a perfect time to kind of jump into one of your journals and maybe how it's impacted a child, maybe even your child. I know we talked about a few of them yesterday. You mentioned that your journals about anxiety and discussing anxiety have seen a demand from parents. Can you tell us a little bit more about that journal?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of parents that their child experienced some of the pandemic. And if they didn't necessarily weren't in elementary school during the pandemic, like my child, she was just starting kindergarten. You experienced it as maybe a brand new parent.
Mhm.
And just in general, mental health has become a really big issue in children. It's like one of the number one issues that children are having is around mental health. I think that there's a couple things happening. We live in a society where we're receiving more information now than ever.
I would love to know what they can do about it. So, how can they use one of the journals to, or like, how have you seen your journal about anxiety impact your daughter or another child? Could you maybe like dive
Yeah.
into the story for us?
So, with my own personal experience, it doesn't necessarily make my daughter's anxiety go away. It's just a part of who she is. Where the journals and giving her the tools to communicate about her anxiety or to understand she's not her anxiety and that feelings come and go like clouds,
Mhm.
it gives her the tools to meet her where she is in said anxiety or fear or worry that she has. And so it's more about giving kids the tools and the resources to navigate in a moment where they're having a hardship with a friend. Maybe it's a conflict or there's a loss in the home with a beloved pet or a loved one. And so what we do is we're not necessarily hitting the said topic to fix, but giving the child the necessary tools and resources to process the feeling. So with my daughter, I've seen her be an advocate for her friends that are going through hard times because now she has the tools and she's been able to pass them on. But I think, one of the biggest things that's happened for us is that we were in Target. I went left, she went right. And for, what was probably 30 seconds, we were separated. And my daughter immediately went into plan. She knew what to do. She knew from us repeating and talking what to do, what to say, and where to go. And we came out of that situation with her feeling empowered that she was so proud of herself because she knew what to do. So that's kind of actually one of the big ones that's happened in our house recently. She went left and I went right, and she had the plan and she knew what to do. From other people I shared yesterday when we were talking on the live, that we talk a lot about keeping surprises, not secrets. And we had a customer who came to us who said that a adult had asked a group of children to keep a secret. The child knew it was wrong, immediately felt uncomfortable in their body, and told their parent. And out of basically a classroom of approximately 20 children, that was the only child that stepped forward and said something. And the statistic I shared was 95% of sexual abuse in children is preventable with a conversation about awareness. And if I ever was too afraid to have that conversation, I revert back to that statistic, is that I would rather get uncomfortable in the conversation than not have it and leave my daughter exposed to said situation of not knowing what to do.
And what really stayed with me after a conversation yesterday was that you mentioned that there's often like grooming that happens before an instance of sexual abuse. Honestly, like even though that's a terrifying statement, it's also a really empowering one. Like there's so much we can do as parents by having that difficult conversation. I just think it's such powerful work that you're spreading these messages. I would love to go back into the development of the journals, because as someone who's creating like a curriculum and a program for families, I'm like well aware of the time that goes into that. And I think that, and the effort, and guys, like the product and program you receive and the way it's like sold or marketed are same but different. Like sometimes as parents, we feel like we're seeing all of these like amazing ads for amazing journals and books and programs. But I think when you hear a little bit about Tara's journey, you'll notice what makes it different. I know you said you went through a year of research and development for your first journal. Could you tell us more about that? And like personally, as an entrepreneur who serves families, I'm really curious to know about that as well.
It's really difficult, and I commend anybody who has an idea and actually takes it to market. The amount of time and energy, tears, money to get there is so difficult. And like I said, before the public sees it, it's potentially been years in the making of figuring out how to do it, and so it's following your dreams when maybe you're the only one who believes in them. So the first thing I will say is that I'm a mom, and I hear all over and over and over, like, why you? And I'm like, well, why not me? I wasn't going to wait for someone else to create this, while also taking very serious the content that I was creating and making sure that I crossed T's and dotted I's. So I worked with an educational engineer as well as a PhD in family therapy to create products. And the difference between those two is, with the educational engineer, it was really important to me that the way that the product is built, it builds upon itself. So, before, let's talk about the feelings journal. Before you can talk about your feelings, you need to be able to name feelings. And so they're built very intentionally in a way that the information is built upon and growing. So you learn the critical thinking concept, and then you put it into games and actions. And the last thing I'll say about that is it does two things. So yes, you might be learning about online safety, or you might be learning about mental health, but the magic is that you are having a conversation with your child, and you're building this bridge of authenticity and trust. And it's a bridge that you can't build as easily when they're in middle school. So you're creating this confidence and within your child that they can talk to you about absolutely anything, and that you're there to be a part of whatever they're feeling and whatever they're going through. And I'm still mommy right now, but the reality is we're getting very close to a point where I won't be mommy anymore. I'm going to be mom, and her friends are going to be really important in terms of opinions and how. And so I'm giving her the foundation and letting her know, you can come to me with whatever, and I'll be there for you. I might not have all the answers, but we'll figure them out together. So not only is the work important from a standpoint of protecting your kids and giving them the tools, but you're really creating this neat relationship that is crucial when they're younger.
These are conversations to have with our kids during their early years in
Yep.
elementary school, maybe even before elementary school. I did want to jump back and say that I think like the best programs for families and kids are made in collaboration between educators, experts, and parents themselves.
You make a product and you're like, this is awesome. And then we put it in the hands of families and we had them video and we watched where they would stop
Mm-hmm.
and get hung up.
Yeah.
And in particular, we have where you cut out a page and you're actually earning badges for completing each section. And being that I was trying to be extremely green and environmentally friendly, I wanted every single page to like have a purpose. But kids refused to cut pages that had content on the back of it, even though like it wasn't needed after they get through it. So long story short, we had to go back and we created wallpaper. So it's a pretty page, but it's like a simple design page on the back of every page that had to be cut out because kids felt like it was too pretty to cut out. And if you've ever designed like a layout, it's a lot harder than you think to redesign an entire book to put those wallpaper pages in and to move the layout forward. So it was a huge setback in going live,
Mm-hmm.
but 100% we knew that we had to do it. But it was kind of like, oh gosh, really? We changed topics based on in our conversation cards about things that we added, everything from allergies to family tree to
Mm-hmm.
religion to family structure. And so much of our conversation cards, a lot of those are from our actual customers that helped us write in topics that they felt was important because I wanted children to be seen in our conversation cards. There was 500 cards. We cut it down to 125 and I hope to continue to bring more. But yeah, it's been a labor of love and a labor of love from actually other moms in my community, which has been really empowering and keeps me going, honestly.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And I know that we talked about how this is a tool that kind of takes things a step further than a book. As a classroom teacher, when I was doing a social emotional learning lesson, we might read a book, but then we'd have a conversation about that book as a class. Maybe, children would talk to their peers about the topic, and then they would share and maybe do a written reflection or another type of reflection. And Tara's created a tool that allows you to open the conversation and help your kids reflect about the topic. And I really like that the preparation is all done for you. I think that's so useful for parents. I mean, where is the time?
Well, I think it's important to note that there's helpful tips throughout our journals that say, hey, grown up, because even if you grew up like this, I think you can get stumped or a little nervous. We're parenting without a PhD in family therapy. And so I wanted to make sure that there were helpful tips in each section so that the parent, grandparent, aunt, uncle, stepmom, stepdad, or teacher, we use inclusive language because it may not always be the parent that is having the conversation with the child, that they're supported in the work. Which brings up like we do have schools that use our products as well as family therapy. And then what's great about the books is that they can be used at home, which I think is really key and important for me, is that I'm supporting my daughter's teacher in what they're doing. So yesterday, my daughter came home. They had done a lockdown drill yesterday. I actually didn't know. She brought it up, and it always brings up a lot of emotion and feelings for her. She specifically got the conversation cards out, and there was a couple of things that she wanted to talk about to kind of peel back her feelings on how
Mhm.
she was feeling about that. And, as she gets older, she understands a little bit more of
Mhm.
the reality of what they're actually doing. And so it's important to note that the product really ages well with the child. The situation might change, but the conversation continues to create a portal for the child to feel comfortable sharing maybe what's on their mind. And that's literally from a child, mine, who has been around the product since she was born, and she still uses it as a way to let me know. It signals to me she actually wants to talk about something pretty big if she brings it to the dinner table.
And when do you usually have these conversations with your daughter? Are they at the dinner table? Do you find it
Yeah.
something you do after school?
So I'll be the first to say, in my opinion, you don't have to have an hour-long conversation. And honestly, if you have an hour-long conversation with your kid, kudos to you, because I've never managed to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So I think that this is, for me, it's more about micro conversations, and it's just more consistent and little. So you could have it at the dinner table, which is a great time that you're all focused and you're sitting. But I also keep a deck of the conversation cards in the car. So it's about micro conversations. It's not about trying to read War and Peace with your kid. It's not going to happen. I think holding yourself to that standard is unrealistic.
Yeah, that's so aligned with our philosophy at Literacy Playground because we encourage parents to do 15-minute reading and writing activities with their kids. I think that sometimes as parents, we get it into our heads, like if we want to teach our kids a new skill, we have to sit at a table, do it like putting in an hour of our time. But what you're saying is so much more successful. Like when we make a huge deal about it, like, hey, we are talking about digital citizenship today, everybody sit at the table. That's when kids shut down or they don't want to be there. But if, hey, like while you're on the train, you pull out a card, it becomes something fun, something engaging, something to look forward to. Since it is the day before Valentine's Day, I do want to share that when my husband and I were dating, we went through the 30 questions to fall in love. It was this article. I don't remember who wrote it, but there was an article that came out where I think a psychologist like came up with these 30 questions, and there was a whole experiment. There was all kind like academic articles came out about it, and it was like these 30 questions will help you build a deep connection with someone. And we used to do like a question or two at every date. I just love that idea of continuing that kind of practice, but with my Facebook because it is fun. And I love what you said yesterday about like, hey, like parents, like we don't have all the answers and we don't have to have all the answers. We just need tools that feel relevant and that we're
Yeah.
aligned with.
I agree with you. The last thing I'll say about that is my husband finds the conversation cards to be really helpful to connect with my daughter. Whereas I feel like I have the gift of gab. I'm really comfortable
Mhm.
about talking about my feelings. My husband is a little bit more reserved and a little bit more afraid to mess it up. And so he gets scared to kind of
Yeah.
try. So what's nice about the conversation cards is he doesn't have to start the conversation. The cards kind of do it for him in a way that then he can kind of take lead after that. But it helps him when that doesn't come naturally for him. It's a little bit hard, and we're a little bit nervous about messing it up. But I wholeheartedly just want to go back. It's about parenting on the fly. We are all doing the best we can with what we have and the knowledge we have, and we live in this world where we're not parenting in a village, like we're all very busy. We're managing our own emotions, our own self needs, these little ones that we're trying to manage and stuff like that. So I think giving yourself grace and space, and that if you're just remotely curious and having conversations, you're a damn good parent that you're just even wanting to think about it. I hope that you try it. It's a lot easier than you think. The peace of mind it gives me that I've had these conversations with my daughter is priceless. And some of my favorite memories is connecting with her through the cards and,
Aw.
really being there for her with, her friends and emotions and things that she's going through. So, yeah, I think it's really important that in this world where it's easy to measure on social media that, like, oh, I'm like, have grace and space for yourself. Like, we're all doing the best we can. And I'm pretty sure you're doing a damn good job.
Yeah. You're doing powerful work, Tara, and
Thank
that was
you.
a wonderful way to end our conversation. Thank you so much for your time. I can't wait for my son to have a larger vocabulary so that we can use these conversation cards and go through all of these journals together. I think this is an incredible tool for families. And thank you for sharing all of your stories with us.
Thank you so very much for having me and for the work that you guys are doing. The love of reading is so unbelievably priceless, and you can see the whole world through a book.
And we are going to be including Bright Little's journals in our customized reading and writing programs. I wanted to share that. And Tara and I created a free self-love kit for you to use with your kids. It includes conversation starters and journal prompts. So I will link that in the show notes.
All right.
All
Take
right.
care of yourself, everybody. Think positive, and you're doing a great job.
I just listened to that conversation for a second time and it was so powerful. Now, as promised, the link to Bright Little's journals, Literacy Playground customized reading and writing programs, and the link to the free self love kit that Tara and I created for you are all in the show notes. The free self love kit includes printable conversation starters, journal prompts, and a few writing activities. Thank you for listening.